The white string lights were still tangled in my hair when I got home that night. My brother's wedding had been beautiful. Sunflowers everywhere. A live band playing something slow and sweet. My mother crying into a lace handkerchief she'd been saving for 30 years. I'd paid for the centerpieces. I'd paid for the rehearsal dinner. I'd smiled through every single toast, even the one where my brother thanked everyone who made this possible without looking at me once. But that wasn't the worst part of the night. I set my heels by the door, poured myself a glass of water, and opened my banking app the way I always do before bed. Just a habit. A small, quiet ritual that usually put my mind at ease. The balance on my screen stopped my heart cold. I stood in my kitchen in Phoenix, in my bridesmaid dress, with sunflower petals still stuck to my shoulder, staring at a number that made no sense. $22,411. Gone. Not spent. Not transferred to savings. Gone moved out in 3 separate transactions over the past 6 days, each one just under the bank's automatic alert threshold. I sat down on the floor. Not the couch. The floor. My name is Maya. I'm 31 years old. I'm a registered nurse. I've worked night shifts, double shifts, holiday shifts. I've eaten vending machine sandwiches at 3 a.m. and driven home in the dark more times than I can count. That $22,000 was 3 years of discipline. It was the down payment on a house I'd been saving for since before my brother even met his now wife. It was the first thing in my life that was entirely, completely mine. And someone had taken it. I want to tell you I immediately knew who, but I didn't. Not in that first moment. In that first moment, I just sat on my kitchen floor and breathed. I grew up in a family that talked about money the way some families talk about religion constantly, dramatically, and always with someone feeling guilty. My parents divorced when I was 12. My mother kept the house in Scottsdale. My father disappeared into Nevada. And my brother and I became the 2 people she leaned on for everything. Emotionally, logistically, eventually, financially. I don't say that with bitterness. I say it because context matters. I need you to understand who we were before I tell you what happened, because otherwise none of it makes sense. My brother, I'll call him Daniel, is 5 years older than me. He's charming the way a summer storm is charming, exciting at first, loud when you least expect it, and always leaving a mess for someone else to clean up. Growing up, I adored him. He was funny and reckless, and he always knew how to make our mother laugh on the hard nights. I followed him around like a shadow when we were kids. It took me a long time to see the pattern. Every few years, Daniel would hit a wall. A job lost, a debt racked up, a plan gone sideways. And every time, my mother would call me. Not him. Me. Maya, your brother needs help. Maya, you're so responsible. You always figure things out. Maya, you know how he is. And I would help. Because I loved him. Because I believed each time that this was the last time. Because saying no felt like abandoning someone who was already drowning. Over the past 4 years alone, I'd given my brother somewhere close to $11,000. A little here, a little there. Never with a contract. Never with a real repayment plan. Always with a promise that dissolved like sugar and rain. I want to be honest with you about something. I knew on some level what I was doing. I wasn't naive. I was choosing to believe in a version of my family that maybe didn't exist anymore, or maybe never had. That choice belongs to me. But what happened 6 days before I sat on that kitchen floor that was not something I chose? Here's what I pieced together. 3 years ago, when I first opened my main checking account, I made a mistake that felt harmless at the time. Daniel was helping me move into my apartment. He needed to transfer some money for a shared expense. I can't even remember what, and I let him use my phone. I was in the other room. I didn't think twice about it. Somewhere in that window, he saved my login credentials. I never changed them. I had no reason to think I needed to. For 3 years, nothing happened. Either he forgot, or he wasn't desperate enough, or he was waiting. I'll never know which. But 6 days before the wedding, something changed. I found out later, through a conversation I wasn't supposed to hear, that Daniel and his new wife had maxed out 3 credit cards paying for their honeymoon to Bali. They were already in trouble before the wedding cake was cut. And my mother knew. She knew, and she helped him. Not by giving him her own money, she didn't have enough. She helped him by telling him it would be okay. By telling him that I had savings. By telling him I would find out later that I didn't really need it the way they did. Because I didn't have kids. Because I was single. because in their accounting of who deserved what, my future counted for less. 3 transactions, 6 days, $22,000. I found this out in stages, and each stage was its own kind of devastation. The morning after the wedding, I called the bank before I even made coffee. My hands were shaking. The representative on the phone was kind and methodical. She walked me through the transactions, confirmed they'd originated from a recognized device, my old iPhone, the one I'd given Daniel 2 years ago when I upgraded, and told me that because it wasn't technically unauthorized access in the traditional sense, the process would be more complicated. She flagged the account anyway. She froze any further transfers. She told me to file a police report and come into the branch with documentation. I sat with that for a moment. A police report? About my family. Okay, I said. Thank you. I did not call my brother first. I did not call my mother. I called my friend Renata, who is a paralegal, who answered on the second ring even though it was 7 a.m. on a Sunday. I told her what I'd found. She was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Don't contact them yet, she said. Go to the bank. Then go to the police station. Document everything first. It's the day after his wedding, I said. Maya. Her voice was steady. I know. Go to the bank. I went to the bank. The branch manager was a soft-spoken man who sat across from me with a yellow legal pad and walked through everything carefully. He explained my options. He explained the dispute process. He explained that because the transfers were made using what appeared to be authorized credentials from a device previously associated with my account, the bank's fraud investigation would take time. He did not make me feel stupid. He did not make me feel like this was my fault. He did something more useful. He made me feel like I had options. I left that branch with a case number, a printed record of every transaction, and a very clear understanding of what came next. I went to the police station. I know some of you reading this are thinking what some of my friends thought when I told them later that going to the police about your own brother is a line you don't cross. That family is family. That there must be another way. I thought about that on the drive over. I thought about all the times I'd chosen family over my own common sense. I thought about the $11,000 I'd given over 4 years that I'd never see again. I thought about eating a sandwich from a vending machine at 3 a.m. so that I could put an extra $200 into savings that month. I thought about the house I'd been dreaming about, something small, something mine, a yard where I could grow tomatoes and not have to ask anyone's permission for anything. And I thought about my mother telling my brother that I didn't really need it. I filed the report. The officer who took my statement was a woman around my age. She didn't editorialize. She asked questions, wrote things down, gave me a case number, and told me that financial crimes involving family members were more common than most people realized. The hardest part, she said, is that people wait too long to report it because they feel guilty. She paused. You didn't wait. No, I said. I didn't. That afternoon, my phone started ringing. Daniel first, then my mother, then Daniel again. I let it go to voicemail. Then I sat at my kitchen table and read the messages as they came in. Daniel. Hey, so I think there might be some confusion about the account. My mother. Maya, please call me. Your brother is very upset. This is a family matter, and we need to handle it as a family. Daniel. It was temporary. I was going to pay it back. I need you to call the bank and tell them it was authorized. I read that last one 3 times. He wanted me to tell the bank it was authorized. I put my phone face down on the table. I made myself a cup of tea. I sat with the quiet for a while, which is something I've been learning to do, sit with things instead of rushing to fix them. Then I called Renata back. She connected me with a lawyer she trusted, a woman named Patricia who specialized in civil litigation, and answered my first question, can I actually recover this money? With a calm, measured, quite possibly, yes. She explained the civil claim process, the documentation I'd need, the timeline. She also explained that the criminal complaint I'd filed that morning strengthened my civil case considerably. What does my brother likely face? I asked. That depends on several things, Patricia said, but unauthorized access to a financial account and transfer of funds without consent is taken seriously, especially with the amounts involved. I thanked her. I scheduled a follow-up. I hung up. My phone had 12 missed calls by then. I called my mother back, not because I was ready, not because I'd forgiven anything, but because I believe in looking at things directly, even when it hurts, and I needed her to hear my voice when I said what I was about to say. She answered on the first ring. Maya, thank God. I've been so worried. Mom. My voice was quiet. I'd made a decision on the drive to the police station that I would not raise my voice. Not once. I need you to listen to me. Your brother made a mistake, sweetheart. He panicked. You know how he— Mom, quiet again. Did you know? The pause was exactly long enough to tell me everything. I knew he was struggling, she said finally. I didn't know he was going to. Did you tell him I didn't need it because I don't have kids? Another pause. Longer this time. I may have said something like, that you have more flexibility than— I've filed a police report, I said, and a fraud claim with the bank. And I've spoken with a lawyer. I heard her breath catch. Maya, this is family. You cannot bring police into a family matter. What will people think? You're going to destroy your brother's life over money? And there it was. The thing I'd been waiting for without knowing I was waiting for it. The reframe. The pivot from what he did to what I was doing. The suggestion that protecting myself was the act of destruction, not the theft. He made a choice, I said. Now I'm making mine. She said more things after that. Some of them were angry. Some of them were tearful. She told me I was being cold. She told me this wasn't who she raised me to be. She told me Daniel was going through a hard time, as if hard times were a kind of permission slip. I let her talk. I didn't argue. When she was done, I said, I love you. I hope we can talk again soon. But right now, I have to go. I hung up. I won't pretend that felt clean or easy. I sat with my phone in my hand for a long time after that, and something moved through me that wasn't quite grief, and wasn't quite relief, and was maybe both at the same time. I thought about all the years I'd kept the peace in that family, all the dinners where I'd smoothed things over, all the times I'd been the reasonable one because someone had to be, and I'd quietly decided it would be me. It occurred to me, sitting there, that being the reasonable one had cost me more than $22,000. The next 2 months were not simple. The bank investigation moved slowly. There were forms, follow-up calls, documentation requests. Patricia was patient and methodical. Daniel's lawyer, yes. He hired a lawyer, sent a letter calling the transfers a private family financial arrangement, which made Patricia raise an eyebrow and make a note. My mother called periodically, sometimes angry, sometimes sad, sometimes trying to broker a peace that would have required me to drop everything and pretend it hadn't happened. I took some of those calls. I skipped others. I was learning, slowly, that loving someone and protecting yourself could exist at the same time, in the same sentence, without canceling each other out. Daniel never called again after that first day. I don't know if that was his lawyer's advice or his own choice. 11 weeks after the wedding, the bank concluded its investigation and ruled in my favor. The transfers were deemed unauthorized use of financial credentials. I received $18,700 back directly through the bank's resolution process. The remaining amount became part of the civil claim. Patricia contacted Daniel's lawyer with a demand. 3 weeks later, he signed a repayment agreement for the outstanding balance, structured in monthly payments, with a notarized acknowledgement of the debt. If he misses a payment, the civil judgment automatically becomes enforceable. I signed my mortgage documents on a Tuesday morning in November. The house is small. It's in a quiet part of Phoenix with old mesquite trees on the street and a backyard that gets good afternoon light. The previous owners left a raised garden bed along the back fence. I've already started planning what to plant in it. I think about my family differently now. Not with hatred, I want to be clear about that. Hatred would require too much of my energy, and I've decided my energy is for things that grow. I think about them with a kind of clear-eyed sadness, the way you feel when you finally see something exactly as it is, instead of as you wished it were. I think about my mother, who confused loyalty with love for so long that she couldn't tell the difference anymore. I think about my brother, who had decided somewhere along the way that need justifies anything. I think about the version of my family I used to believe in, the one where we were all doing our best for each other, and I mourn that version the way you mourn something that might not have ever been entirely real. And I think about what it cost me to learn this, the years of giving when I should have held back, the thousands of dollars handed over with hope instead of sense. The part I played in building a dynamic that ultimately led to that night in my kitchen, in my bridesmaid dress, staring at a number that made no sense. I'm not the villain of my own story, but I'm not without responsibility either. I let it go on too long because saying yes was easier than the conversation that no would have started. That's on me. I know that. The difference is I know it now. I had coffee with Renata last week. We sat on my back porch, on my property, in a house that belongs to me, and she asked how I was really doing. Good, I said. And I meant it. Do you miss them? I thought about it honestly, the way she deserves. I miss who I thought they were, I said. But I think I've been grieving that for a long time already. She nodded. We sat with that for a while, the way you can with someone who doesn't need you to wrap things up neatly. The sun was going down over the mesquites. The light was turning that particular shade of amber that Phoenix does in autumn, low and warm and long. My tea was going cold in my hands, and I didn't rush to fix it. There's something I want to say to anyone who's reading this and recognizing something in it. Not the specific details. Your family is different. Your numbers are different. Your story is yours. But maybe the feeling, the slow creep of giving more than you had, the guilt that shows up right on schedule every time you think about saying no. The way some families learn to rely on your yes because you've never made your no believable. Your finances are not a shared resource just because someone shares your blood. Your savings are not a safety net for someone else's recklessness. The fact that you have more does not mean you owe more, and wanting to protect what you built is not selfishness. It is the most fundamental act of self-respect. Change your passwords. Set up two-factor authentication. Never share account access. Not with anyone, not even temporarily. If something feels wrong, check your accounts that night. And if you find what I found, call your bank before you call your family. I closed the back door when the air turned cool and stood in my kitchen for a moment. It's a small kitchen. White tile, a window over the sink that faces the garden bed, a drawer that sticks a little that I keep meaning to fix. Everything in it is exactly where I put it. That's the part that still gets me, quietly, every time. The smallness of it. The ordinary, private miracle of a space that is entirely, completely, unapologetically mine. I didn't lose my family. I finally found out what my family was, and then I went and built something better.